My ex-girlfriend, who slept with my brother just a day before our wedding, contacts me 12 years later, a week before my upcoming wedding. This time, I want payback. I, 38M, am getting married to my girlfriend, 35F, of 4 years in less than a week. This is my second time getting engaged. 12 years ago, I nearly married my ex-girlfriend, who is now 38. She was my high school girlfriend, and we had been together for nearly 10 years. We even lived together for 5 years. I was prepared to get married, and it seemed like she was too. My family liked my ex too, so they were excited when I shared the news of our engagement. But it didn't happen because just one day before the wedding, my ex slept with my brother. My ex asked me to spend the night before the wedding at a hotel while she stayed home. She thought it would bring bad luck if we were together, so I did what she wanted. I forgot my shoes at home and had to return for them a few hours after arriving at the hotel. When I got home, I was surprised to find the living room lights off. My ex never turned off the lights when leaving a room, so I couldn't believe she actually remembered to do it this time. I went in and went straight to the bedroom. That's where I kept the shoebox, and it meant a lot to me. When I opened my room door, I was met with the most horrifying sight imaginable. My ex was in bed with my little brother, and they were so wrapped up in what they were doing that they hardly noticed when I walked in. It took them a few seconds to notice me, but I was completely frozen and didn't know how to respond. Everything fell apart in an instant. Once I understood what I had just seen, I took off while my ex shouted after me. I drove back to the hotel, breathing fast and feeling overwhelmed, unable to accept what I had just witnessed. I was set to get married the next day, so this was just crazy. Once I got to my room, it took some time to gather myself. When I finally calmed down, I found myself crying for at least an hour. Luckily, I hadn't shared my hotel details with my ex, so she couldn't reach me in person and could only send texts, which she did. She sent me several apology texts and tried to convince me it was just a one-time thing, but I really didn't believe that. She mentioned that the wedding was stressing her out and she needed to unwind. My brother had always supported her, so she felt unsure about who else to reach out to. I couldn't believe she was trying to explain herself after what I had witnessed, so I blocked her right away. I blocked my brother because I didn't want to hear any of their fake apologies. I took some time, but I finally got it together and canceled all the wedding plans. No matter how much money I lost, I needed to escape this situation. My ex wasted a decade of my life, so I didn't care about spending a few $1,000s to ensure I wouldn't have to be with her again. I called my parents and told them what happened. They didn't know if they should comfort me or distance themselves from my brother, so I let them take some time to decide. It was late in the evening, so I ordered dinner and then cried myself to sleep. Since that day, I ran into my ex just 2 times. She returned home to gather her things and leave. A few years later, at a mutual friend's party, she approached me, but I walked away as soon as I saw her coming. My brother and I haven't talked since that incident because my parents have cut him off for what he did to me. Last I heard, he was in Europe and hasn't returned for 3 years. That was in the past, and I've moved on from that tough time. I'm in a better place now, and with a woman I trust completely. Everything was fine until a few days ago, exactly 1 week before my wedding, when my ex contacted me. I have no idea how she discovered my wedding, but she reached out through a new Facebook account after I had blocked her old one. She sent me a lot of messages expressing her devastation about my upcoming marriage. It struck me as odd that she said again because, despite almost getting married, we were never actually married. It felt like a complete déjà vu. She was begging me to take her back, despite everything that had happened, saying I was the only man she had ever loved. I was really affected by it and told my fiancé right away. I was really bothered by this. I wanted to tell her off for bothering me before my wedding, but another part of me just wanted revenge. I was sure I had handled everything correctly in the past, but now I wanted to hurt her so much that she'd never consider reaching out to me again. When I shared my feelings with my fiancé, she completely understood. She had been cheated on before, and while it wasn't a long relationship, it still hurt her. She knew exactly what I was going through. This time, we decided to take action. We made a plan to get back at my ex and ensure she experienced the same pain she caused me. A few hours after getting her text, I decided to reply and let her know I was ready to talk. She said she was ready to come over immediately, but I suggested she book a room at a nearby hotel. I planned to meet her there the next day to avoid raising any suspicion with my fiancé. My fiancé was right there with me while I was talking to her. She said yes to everything, so the next day I went to her hotel at the time we had set. She looked so happy to see me, tears of joy streaming down her face, but soon those tears would turn to sadness. She sat me down and said she had been sorry for what happened over the past 12 years. She wanted to make it up to me, but didn't know how until she heard from a friend that I was getting married again. That made her realize she had to reach out one last time or risk losing me for good. I paid close attention to her and acted like I cared, holding her hands as she talked. I was just waiting for my fiancé to arrive. About 20 minutes later, someone knocked on the door, and I hurried to open it. My fiancé walked in, and behind them were all our groomsmen and bridesmaids, each wearing masks of my brother's face. They brought in a cake too, and it had my brother's face smiling at us. My ex was shocked and couldn't find the words to respond. We shouted surprise. She stared in shock. Clearly no one expected this. We convinced the hotel staff we were surprising her. It was easy since she had already told them to let in any guest who wanted to visit her. She meant just me, but I had other plans. Once she realized what was going on, she began to cry and mumble some jumbled words, but I wasn't going to let her get away that easily. She messaged me just a week before my wedding, even after cheating on me with my brother a day before the ceremony. Now she would have to deal with the consequences of her actions. I told her this was what she deserved. If she thought she had any chance with me after cheating, she was mistaken. She shouldn't have texted me after everything she put me through. I was glad she felt hurt by my actions because she brought it on herself. I was cold and direct when I said all of this, but she kept crying. She told me that if I didn't want her back, I should have just ignored and blocked her instead of trying to humiliate her like this. I didn't feel sorry for her at all, neither then nor now. I told her to never talk to me again and walked out, leaving her alone and crying in the hotel room. I'm getting married in 2 days, but some of my fiancé's friends think I should apologize to my ex. They believe that the way I confronted her was too harsh and that she didn't deserve it, no matter what happened. My groomsmen don't feel the same way since they've known me since middle school. They know about my struggles with depression and how hard I fought for my life after my breakup with my ex because of everything that happened. They understood how much I cared for her and what she meant to me, so they didn't judge my actions. My fiancé's friends were likely hoping for some typical high school drama to talk about later, but what happened was too genuine and intense for that. My fiancé supports me and believes I shouldn't apologize, but her friends are saying they won't attend the wedding if I don't. I'm feeling really conflicted because I don't want my fiancé to be unhappy on our wedding day. She values her friends, but I don't believe I owe my ex an apology. If she had just stayed away, none of this would have happened. It feels like she didn't want me to be happy. She's still trying to play the victim and keeps sending me texts from spam accounts about how I broke her heart and that this will definitely come back to me someday. I really don't like this kind of emotional manipulation, not for my ex and definitely not for my fiancé's bridesmaids. I realize she won't ask me to apologize for her benefit, but I feel like I should do it anyway, which is why I'm here. I have to make a decision quickly. Time is running out. Am I wrong for humiliating my cheating ex after she tried to reconnect just a week before my wedding? Update: the reactions to this have been quite varied, to say the least. With just 1 day left until the wedding, I've chosen to talk to my fiancé before taking any action, as many have recommended. I shared my feelings with her, and right away she said, I didn't need to apologize to my ex just because her bridesmaids thought I should. If that upset them, they could choose not to come to her wedding. She mentioned that her bridesmaids were clueless about the situation. Most of them believed I had overreacted, even after she explained that my ex and I had been together for 10 years and that he cheated on me with my brother. Those actions are incredibly cruel and not something that should be forgiven. They weren't convinced and still thought I was being unreasonable and owed her an apology. She eventually stopped trying to explain my side and told them they didn't have to come to our wedding if they didn't want to. She hasn't talked to her friends in a whole day, and it seems pretty unlikely they'll show up. One of them even reimbursed her for the bridesmaid dress she bought for everyone, and she believes that most of them will probably not show up. She's acting tough for me, but I can tell she's in pain because these women have been her friends since high school. My fiancé claims she doesn't care, but I can tell she does, underneath it all. I've chosen to speak with her friends and attempt to persuade them directly. My ex is still causing a lot of trouble. A few hours ago, she called me and spent 15 minutes trying to argue. She kept insisting that I still loved her, but was too proud to say it. Why was she saying that? It seems that my actions were interpreted as a way to humiliate her, which suggested I still had feelings for her beneath it all. Yes, she is correct, but those emotions are rooted in hate and disgust. She thinks I wanted to see her one last time, which is why I held her hands while she talked. The truth is, I did it to shock her even more. I couldn't help but laugh while she talked. I thought she'd take the hint, but she just kept going on about how we were meant to be and how I should cancel the wedding before it was too late. Honestly, the only reason I'm considering any of this is to prevent her from making a bad decision. I've been trying to contact her parents so they can take her away, but I haven't been able to reach them. I'm just waiting for a response, and after that, I'll finally be able to end this for good. I still dislike her, but I don't want her to harm herself. I'm not that cold-hearted. Update 2. Hello, everyone. We are now married. It's been a few days since the ceremony, and I still can't wrap my head around it. She is my wife now, and I couldn't be happier. Sadly, there's more bad news. Her friends didn't show up to the wedding, even though I tried to get them to come. I called each of them to explain my reasons for my actions and why I didn't want to apologize, but they didn't seem to care. Even when I asked them to come for my wife's sake, they weren't very enthusiastic about it. It felt strange to me because I would definitely go to a friend's wedding, even if I didn't really like the person they were marrying. I found out the truth yesterday when my wife admitted she sensed her friends wouldn't come, regardless of my apology. It was because she didn't follow their requests, and that upset them. They were not happy about that, and thought they were all part of the same team, so they felt it was important to present a united front. She had friends from high school, and even though they stayed close over the years without any major conflicts, this was the first time their friendship faced a challenge. She chose me instead of them, and they were not happy about it. She mentioned feeling a bit upset, but was too embarrassed to say so since it all seemed so childish. I didn't care, because now I knew it wasn't really my fault. Her friends were just selfish. My wife mentioned that she felt a sense of relief that they decided not to come. It meant she could finally stop trying to fit in and live life on her own terms without always needing her friends' approval. That worked out well for us, I guess. My ex's parents finally got back to me the night before my wedding. I quickly told them what their daughter had attempted and how they needed to go to the hotel where she was staying to bring her back for her safety. She was acting very strangely, and I didn't think it was right for her to be alone. They had been on a hiking trip without any network. Now that they were back, they promised to come and take her back as soon as possible, and thanked me for letting them know. I haven't heard from them since, but I assume they got her home safely. Update 3. Hello, everyone. It's been a week since my wedding, and it's been full of drama. As I said, my girlfriend and her parents haven't contacted me since the last time I talked to her parents. I thought they would take her home, but that wasn't the case. 2 nights ago, we heard a knock at the door. It was late, and my wife and I were confused about who it could be since we weren't expecting anyone. I opened the door without checking the cameras first. My ex walked right in with her bags after I opened it. My wife was on the couch and jumped up the moment my ex entered the room. I was about to ask her what she was doing in my house, but before I could speak, she said she was here to stay. She said her parents came to take her home a few days ago, but she refused to go because she knew I would bring her back soon. My wife and I were shocked and didn't know how to respond to everything that was happening. She said her parents wanted her to return with them, but they had a big argument, and she decided to stay at the hotel. She was running low on funds, so she chose to move in with me. I knew that if I spent time with her again, I'd remember the past and might end up falling for her all over again. I really didn't know how to respond because everything was just so strange. My wife attempted to talk to her, but she completely ignored her and kept addressing me, insisting that I allow her to move in with us. I explained to her, as kindly as possible, that I was married and she couldn't just come here to stay with me. She responded by saying she didn't recognize the wedding, so to her, I was still single. I was shocked by what was happening, but I couldn't bring myself to ask her to leave. She looked really unstable and seemed like she needed help. I asked her to wait in the living room while I went to the bedroom with my wife to talk about our next steps. My wife understood and recognized that my ex was acting strangely. She required real, professional assistance, and we understood that. I attempted to reach her parents, but they ignored my calls. They replied, saying they couldn't make her return and that she was too unstable to stay with them, so she was on her own now. They seemed embarrassed by her, and it was sad to see how quickly they were willing to abandon their own daughter when she needed support. I had no other choice, so I called my parents. They arrived in about 30 minutes. My ex fell asleep on the couch, which turned out to be fortunate. When my parents arrived, we agreed to take her to a therapist right away because we couldn't predict what she might do next. My wife and I decided to let her stay that night. We just couldn't bring ourselves to feel anger towards her anymore, given how sad everything was. It was obvious that something had broken in her mind, and she needed treatment as soon as possible. The unfortunate part was that she no longer had her parents to rely on. My parents and I took her to the hospital the next day. She was still talking about how happy she was that I was finally coming around and had even started planning our wedding. We brought her to a mental health professional, but she declined, insisting she felt completely fine. After a lot of struggle and complications, the doctors were able to calm her down with some medication and gave her some drugs whose names I don't recall. After that, she appeared much calmer, and a couple of hours later, she finally expressed that she wanted to go home. I took her home and let her rest in her room while my family and I sat in the living room, considering our next steps. My wife and I felt a sense of relief when she decided it was time to go home. We helped her pack her things into the trunk of our car, and then we drove her home together. She stayed quiet, and so did we. What could we possibly say in a moment like this? When she got home, she said sorry to us for the trouble she caused and mentioned that she felt ashamed of what had happened. My wife and I felt really uncomfortable during this situation, but we told her it was okay and suggested she look after herself before heading home. I reached out to my ex's mother and told her everything that happened. I think that finally made them understand how serious it was. She mentioned that she has moved in with her daughter and will keep us posted. Regardless of everything that has happened, my wife and I genuinely hope she recovers. Additional